My first question to you is what kind of mentors, especially writing mentors, have you had over the years? And is there a specific mentor who changed your life?
Well, I would say that I've had quite a few mentors over the course of my life. I had a lot of really amazing teachers in my life who encouraged me as a writer and as a creative thinker. But if I had to say a mentor that I've had who actually was never a teacher of mine, just a friend and someone I admired who definitely changed my life, it would be the writer Roxane Gay. When I was in college, I found some of her fiction writing, and she was also based in the Midwest, and we got to meet. And then she's just really looked out for me and been a very encouraging force in my life since then.
That's so amazing. I wanted to ask you, Ashley, there are so many incredibly vivid details in your amazing memoir, which I have right here, um, from your childhood, from your very early childhood. And I'm just wondering, when did you actually start writing about your life? Um, and then at what point did you decide, okay, I really want to make this into a book? How did that all sort of unfold?
I started writing about my life when I was in college. I had to take a nonfiction writing class for my creative writing major, which was my major at the time. And I was writing a series of essays in my nonfiction class for this amazing professor I had named Jill Chrisman, who, by the way, another fantastic mentor who to this day meets with me on Wednesdays so that we can write together online for an hour. And I had an essay I turned in at the end of the year. She, with each member of her class, goes over the body of work that they submitted and essentially tells them, you know, this is what I think you did really well on. This is what I think you could work on in the future if you want to keep writing this way, you know, all of that. And it was at that point that she read an essay of mine and told me that it was part of a book. And I was like, no, it's not. I didn't write a book. And she was like, but it is part of a book. It's a book you could write. And I think you have that in you. And I would really love it if you gave it a shot someday. And just having that encouragement and sort of like that challenge from her really, really helped me decide that this was something I was going to do. Plus, I have had a pretty big chip on my shoulder from the time I was a child about the fact that so many adults around me didn't seem to think of children as full people. They didn't think that we had the full range of emotions or even that we were making memories at that point in our life. I think some people thought that you got to hit reset when we turned 18 and be different people. But I knew that wasn't true. And I knew that at some point I wanted to tell a story that, you know, proved or that supported the theory that that wasn't true. And
Mhm.
why couldn't that be my story?
I love that. So, why do you feel it's important to support Girls Right Now's work?
I think that each of us have really incredible individual stories. And I think that our individual stories, when we tell them, connect us to each other and make us feel less alone in the world and make us, I don't even want to say feel like our feelings are okay. It proves to us that our feelings must be okay because everybody else has them. No human being has access to more feelings than any other human being. We all have access to the same things and we've probably all experienced the same emotions, even if we haven't had the same experiences that triggered those emotions. And I want every girl, every kid, every person to understand that they are not alone in their stories or in the feelings that come from their stories. And I think, especially with girls, that if we talk to each other a lot more about what is true in our lives, what we're actually feeling and what we're actually going through, the only people who benefit from that is everybody. And the only people who don't benefit from that are the people who would want to subjugate us or keep us in positions of powerlessness. And we don't need to give them any more power. That's our power. So we should take it back.
That was an awesome answer. So speaking of giving people power, can I read you back something really brief from your book? You you go to talk to your father, and I'm not going to give too much away, but you're talking to him about your writing, and he says, "Do me a favor, Ashley. When you write about you and me, just tell the truth, your truth. Don't worry about nobody's feelings, especially not mine. You got to be tough to tell your truth, but it's the only thing worth doing next to loving somebody." I thought that was so powerful. And he kind of gave you a gift there that you didn't really expect or necessarily ask for, which was sort of his permission to really be totally honest in your writing, which comes through so much in the book. But I was just wondering about then other people in your family, other people in your life. Um, how have they responded to the book? Did you talk to them about the book before it came out? And I think something that a lot of people who write about their own lives go through is how honest can they be, and how to be honest maybe without it affecting their relationships with the people that they're writing about. I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
I don't know if there is a way to write the truth and have no one involved have a problem with it. I don't think that that exists. However, I don't think that if they have a problem with it, that that is necessarily the storyteller's problem. Now, there are some stories that are not mine to tell. There were things at different points in the book where I thought, this is a really important thing that I want to write about, or I feel like writing about this part of this person's life is going to really get across, the humanity of this person that I'm trying to get across. But ultimately, I would remember that I wasn't actually involved in that part of their life in any way. And so it was not my story to tell. But wherever I am involved and wherever I am writing about my experiences from my perspective, that is my story. I own that story. That's my reality. And my father, my mother, my family, everybody has the opportunity to deny my reality. But at this point, I've worked on myself and on my mental health and on my sense of self long enough that I have a really strong sense of who I am. I have a really strong trust in myself, in my ability, and in my intention to tell the truth. And because of that, I know that even when people are upset with the way I've decided to tell the truth, or even the fact that I've decided to tell the truth, that is their upset to process and to decide whether or not they can move on from. But me, I'm never going to apologize for telling the truth. I'm never going to apologize for telling my story. And I'm never going to do that because my story is not an apology. It's just the truth. It's just the truth. And the truth doesn't hurt people. They might say that it hurts them, but that's their reaction. It's not me doing something to them, telling the truth. They just might not like it. And not liking what happened isn't the same as being harmed. And I try to keep that in my mind all the time.
I loved your answer. So, what impact do you want to leave when people read your book? And also, what inspired you to write this book? Like, when did you feel like you had to tell your story?
I would say that the impact I would like it to have is that a lot more people decide that their stories are worth telling, even if they don't want to write a memoir and have it published and put out into the world. But maybe they'll talk to a friend about something that they thought they could never bring up or talk about. Maybe they'll talk to a parent about something that's really bothering them. Maybe they'll talk to a teacher. I just think that the less we hide things, especially things that we think we have to or are supposed to be ashamed of, the more we get rid of shame. And if we start getting rid of shame in ourselves about our circumstances and our experiences and our past behaviors and our stories, then we'll feel less inclined to shame other people. And if we feel less inclined to shame other people, they might shame themselves less. And then maybe they'll shame fewer people. And maybe over time, we start a chain reaction where there is a little less shame in the world. And if there is even a little less shame in the world because we talk to each other and are honest with each other and tell our truths when we can with people who we love and trust, if we can do that, then we will have done the hardest thing in the world, which is make the world better. And that's a big goal. That's a big want. But what's the point of wanting anything if you can't let yourself imagine the biggest, best things you might want? And I try to have a big imagination about my desires and the world that I want to see. I decided that I was going to write this book and that I wanted to write this book when I was still in college. I didn't know that I would ever want to publish it or that I would ever want anyone else to read it or even let anyone else read it. But I knew I was going to write it. And I knew that I was going to do that to give the part of me that felt so silenced and so shut down and shut in as a kid. Um, that part of me that I thought had no voice had a voice the whole time and had a lot to say. And I wanted to give her the opportunity to say it. And I wanted to help her say it. And once she said it, I wanted us to decide what to do with it. And we wrote a book, and now you have it. And I hope when you finish it, that you feel like some part of it, any part of it, saw you too. That's what I'd like.
Well, I definitely felt that. um, oh, thanks for that answer. I have a question now for you from one of our mentors, KK Apple, who wanted to know what writing or life advice would you give to your 17-year-old self?
I will start with writing advice. The writing advice that I would give to my 17-year-old self is that there is no such thing as a golden first draft. It's not going to look exactly right as soon as you start writing, or even when you're done writing it for the first time. That doesn't happen for anybody. And so there's no reason to hold yourself to a standard that isn't human because you're a human. That's what I would tell myself about writing. What I would tell myself about life is that there are going to be a lot of opportunities to follow people, um, to follow traditions, customs, culture. But the most powerful thing that you can follow, and the thing that is most likely to lead you towards something that will make you happy, and then continue to lead you to things that make you happy, is to follow your curiosity. Whatever it is that makes you think, I want to know more about that, I want to learn more about that. I don't care what other people say, like, is going to lead to a job or not lead to a job. The jobs that I have right now didn't exist really when I was in high school. I mean, technically, writer existed, but every place I've worked and almost any job I've had wasn't a job or a place of work or business with a business model that would have been recognizable to anybody around me when I was 17 years old. But I just kept doing things that I liked and that I was interested in. And I think if more people did that, and if more people moved in those directions, we'd have happier people. Even though happiness is just a sensation, not a condition, you're not always going to be happy 24/7. But you want to encounter that sensation as much as you can, and following your curiosity will help with that.
As a 16-year-old, I'll definitely take your advice as I'm turning 17 soon. So thank you so much for that. And another question from mentor Courtney Stevenson: what was it like revisiting memories of your childhood as an adult?
It was hard, really hard. Um, I definitely at times had to ramp up my therapy. I had to do a trauma program where I went away for a week and received intensive counseling, as part of a group. And all of those things were really hard, but ultimately really fantastic for me. Because what I realized was that child voice inside that I was trying to give the opportunity to speak, I had spent most of my life stuffing that voice down. And that's what I was in the practice of doing, was making it go away by any means necessary. And so once I got to a place where I was like, okay, it's safe, now you can come out, that voice didn't trust me. It was like, no, if I start to come out, you're just going to push me down again. That's what you've done every time before. And I had to learn how to practice doing something different in a new way. And that was hard. It was so hard. And then it was worth it. Like most things, it was really, really hard. And then it was super worth it. And that sensation of happiness that, I'm always, happy and willing to encounter, it showed up a lot more often once I did that. And that voice became a lot stronger and believed me when I told it that I was on its side.
Do we have time for one more question? Maybe we do. Um, okay, great. Well, I guess I would just ask you one last thing, Ashley, which is there is a lot of trauma in your book, and I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the writing and the relationship between the writing and, if that has helped you, do you feel like, to sort of come to terms with things in your past and things in your life, or, how do those two things what's the interplay between those for you? I know writing is not therapy, but do you treat it as therapy? Is there any piece of that for you? No, maybe not.
I don't treat writing like therapy. Therapy is therapy, and I love therapy. And trust me, writing is not the same thing. Writing gives me anxiety sometimes. But writing is very clarifying for me. And it's clarifying for me because it is one of the ways that my emotions find really accessible when it comes to expressing myself, expressing how I feel, expressing what I mean, reaching out, connecting with people. Writing really helps me do those things. And those things then help me practice some of the behaviors and some of the healing work that I do in therapy. So yeah, it's not therapeutic, but I would say it absolutely provides an opportunity for me to play out my therapeutic practice and express myself to people and show up in a way that is comfortable for me, and I don't have to pretend to be anything different. On the page, I don't ever have to show up as anybody else. It's not always fun to show up as me on the page. It's not always super confidence making to look at what I have created on the page after, some incident of going in and writing down things as fast as I can. But ultimately, it is productive and good for me. And things that are good for me that are not therapeutic, or I can't say, well, this is exactly how I benefit from it, that's okay. That's okay, because play is important too. And you spend a lot of your life being told you're an adult now, no more fun and games, no play, but play is important. And writing is also one of the ways I play. And I want to play for the rest of my life. Every human should, and everybody should get the opportunity to. Don't ever give up playing, whether it be on the pages of a notebook, in a sketchbook, with makeup brushes on your face, beautiful styles in your hair, the clothes you wear, the photos you take on your phone, whatever it is, however you play, hold on to it. It doesn't have to turn into a job to be something that you enjoy and that gives you something valuable back.
That was a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you again, Ashley, for joining us here tonight. And congratulations again for your upcoming memoir. We are so excited for the world to get to read it.
Thank you all so much for having me. Every time I get to talk to the folks from Girls Right Now, it's a wonderful time, and I always walk away feeling like I can't wait to read more of the stories that you all come up with.